Is Duke University doing you dirty? That is the topic of today's video. My name is Craig Meister. I'm a college admissions coach. You can learn more about me and how you can work with me one-on-one throughout the entire college admissions process on my website, which is collegemeister.com. A recent article in the Chronicle, the Duke student newspaper, has the headline, Duke no longer giving numerical rating to standardized testing, essays in undergraduate admissions. Let me read you this article and give my thoughts as I go. It's written by Jasper Liu. Duke is no longer giving essays and standardized testing scores numerical ratings in the undergraduate admissions process. The change went into place this year, Dean of Undergraduate Admissions Christoph Gutentag wrote in an email to the Chronicle. He explained that essays are no longer receiving a score because of a rise in the use of generative artificial intelligence and college admissions consultants. When asked about how the admissions office determines if an essay is AI generated or written by consultants, and if applicants are hurt if the office determines so, Gutentag answered that, quote, there aren't simple answers to these questions, end quote. What the? Did you hear that? There aren't simple answers to these questions. So they're concerned at Duke, according to Gutentag, of AI and consultants helping students write their essays for their first year applications. But they're basically saying there are no simple ways to determine if that's actually happening and or how they would mete out punishment for those who are demonstrating that they have had some other party write their essays or contribute to their essays. That right there is a story right there. But that's not even where I'm going with this. That's just a fascinating side note that I wanted to point out. Let's keep reading. Despite the changes, Gutentag wrote that essays and standardized testing scores are still considered in the admissions process. Quote, essays are very much part of our understanding of the applicant. We're just no longer assuming that the essay is an accurate reflection of the student's actual writing ability. Standardized tests are considered when they're submitted as part of the application. Again, what did you hear that? Basically, he's saying that we're going to still consider them. We're just not going to consider the scores or the writing based off of any objective standard. We're not going to give numerical traceable rankings or numbers to essays or to even scores. Scores, which are purely numbers and can easily transition to other numbers, are no longer going to be viewed objectively. They're going to be viewed subjectively, therefore with no paper trail. And they're going to be considered the way Duke wants to consider them, wholly subjectively. Therefore, if they like you in other ways, they're going to like your essay. If they don't like you in other ways, they're not going to like your essay. They're going to suspect that it was written by AI or consultant. According to Gutentag, essays will now be used to, quote, help understand the applicant as an individual rather, not just a set of attributes and accomplishments, end quote. He also wrote that the admissions office now values essays that give, quote, insight into who the unique person is whose application we're reading, end quote, and that, quote, content and insight matter more than style. Again, if they like you and they like what they're hearing about you, even if communicated in a very rough way, your essay could be a net positive for your application, but there will be no way to trace that it was all based off of subjective likability or popularity relative to the kid who they just didn't like in any other factors. And it was beautifully written, beautifully argued, incredibly well structured with a thesis and a body and a conclusion. For that kid who they already sort of didn't really want to accept, they'll just assume AI or a consultant wrote it. Quote, because that they are not given a numerical rating, because of that, they are not given a numerical rating, but considered as we think holistically about a candidate as a potential member of the Duke community, he wrote. I did another video recently about an email that BU sent to college counselors around the world about the word holistic and holistically. And I think now we can put Duke in the category of BU as being an institution where the word holistic has evolved in its meaning over the years. And now the word holistic no longer means reviewing you wholly and making the appropriate decision there. Now they're basically using the word holistic as a code for as we think equitably about a candidate. Because Duke is an equity-focused institution. It's a PEI, predominantly equitable institution. So as a result, anytime you see the word holistic in the context of Duke admissions, just trade it out for either the word we review applicants holistically. That would mean we review applicants equitably. We really like to think of our process as holistic. That means we really like to think of our process as equitable. That is the code. That is the code you need to get comfortable with as you consider admission to BU and Duke. Let's keep going. Again, the BU video you can watch in a video I named What the Heck is Holistic Admissions? You can watch that at a separate time. Going on with Duke, previously the Duke Admissions Office would assign numerical ratings of 1 to 5 on 6 different categories: curriculum strength, academics, recommendations, essays, extracurriculars, and test scores. Applicants would then receive a total score, if they got all of them at the highest number, I guess, out of 30 by adding up each category's numerical rating. According to Gunentag, the only categories given numerical ratings now are the 4 categories that remain. Quote, the strength of a student's curriculum, their grades in academic courses, their extracurricular activities, and the letters of recommendation. The letters of recommendation? Yes, I just read that. The letters of recommendation. Letters of recommendation are basically PR pieces or press releases for students at all high schools where counselors and teachers are writing them. They are basically completely there to cheer on the applicant, which is a longstanding practice. And very rarely do they include anything negative about an applicant. That would be left on the cutting room floor of the editing process of any strong letter recommendation or from a teacher or a counselor. But that is going to still be given a numerical rating along with the student's extracurricular activities, as well as the student's strength of curriculum and their grades in academic courses. Those are all still given objective ratings, but the SAT or ACT score is not. The essays are not, even though it's 100% in most cases the work of the student. Obviously, edge cases are being laundered through bad consultants or AI. But the vast majority of students, I hope, I pray, are still moral beings. Wouldn't it concern Duke, A, that there's a significant, at least minority of applicants who are submitting doctored applications? That would concern me if I was the director of admissions over at Duke and they had no real plan how to filter that out. And they're not really saying how they do that or how they're really sure of it. But even so, at least in most cases, you're still assuming the students writing their own letters, but their own essays, but the letter recommendation is written by a third party. That's written by a teacher or a counselor. That is still going to be given an objective ranking. But the actual essays the student writes and sweats over and writes for sometimes days and weeks and tries to perfect, those will no longer be given an objective numerical traceable ranking or numeric assigned number. Neither will the SAT or ACT scores, the most objective part of the process, even if you don't like what those things are testing. Test scores are the most objective part of the entire application. Those will no longer be given numerical ratings that are traceable and objective. So there can't be, again, any sort of audit. Because ultimately what's happening here is that Duke is making very clear that they want carte blanche. They want the freedom to accept who they want based off of the fewest number of objective factors possible. And they don't want to have at Duke the ability of anyone to go in there and see that they're rejecting a kid with a 1590 on the SAT, but accepting a kid with a 1290 based off of anything objective. There can't be a numerical way in which that was ranked. They have to view it subjectively. They're still going to consider it when they want to consider it. So that 1590 didn't help the kid because he got rejected, but the 1290 didn't hurt the kid because there's no numerical ranking any longer for it. But they still accepted the kid with a 1290 because they wanted to accept him or her anyway, based off of other factors, either one of these 4 remaining objective factors or other parts of the subjective nature of this process that Duke is now increasingly weighing on the subjective side of things when they're reviewing applications. Quote, there are naturally many, many more factors that are taken into account when making admissions decisions. These are just a partial but useful way of thinking of applicants in the context of the pool as a whole, Gutentag wrote. He also said, quote, I suppose it may be something similar to looking at a player's various statistics, which only give you a partial picture of the player's contributions to the team, end quote. So what he's saying there basically is that, you can't just want to trade for a certain player on your baseball team just because he has the highest RBIs or the highest batting average or slugging percentage. Even those are all statistics. That you may also want someone on your team because he's a good, he's got intangible benefits, like he's a really good leader. People follow him. He's collaborative. He has a good attitude in the clubhouse. What Duke is basically saying is those intangibles are very much a huge part of this process at Duke, an increasingly large part of the process, because two things that used to be objective are now subjective. Gutentag noted that historically numerical ratings have been valuable in helping to identify competitive applicants. What is not explained in this article, I don't know if it was not shared or if it just wasn't included in the final article, is why they think they're no longer valuable in helping identify competitive applicants. Oh well. Admissions processes for colleges across the country have seen changes and experimentation recently due to a variety of factors, most notably the Supreme Court's overturning of race-based affirmative action in June 2023 and changes to standardized testing requirements due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which is when Duke went test optional, and they remain test optional as of March 2024 when this video is being produced. This is the money quote. This is the end quote now of the article in the Duke Chronicle. Quote, the Supreme Court decision was absolutely not a factor in how we decided to approach essays, end quote, Gutentag wrote. Duke remained test optional for the 2023-2024 admission cycle. So everything I've just referred to is referencing not the future alone, but it's also referencing the present. This was the way in which the 2023-2024 admission cycle went at Duke. Why we're hearing about this in February/March of 2024, and we didn't hear about this eyes wide open going into the 2023-2024 admission cycle, I think is very sad why we didn't. And also it hurts the students who tried to apply and didn't really know the full contours of how they were navigating the process. But I give Duke props for the fact that they're sharing this information now, because the vast majority of peer institutions do not share this information. But getting back to that end money quote, the Supreme Court decision was absolutely not a factor in how we decided to approach essays. Notice what was not said. They did not mention test scores, and that was purposeful. Okay, that was very purposeful. Okay, so moving forward, how does this impact you if you're a student who wants to apply to Duke, or if you're a parent who has a student who wants to apply to Duke? You just have to think long and hard if you or your student have a value system that aligns with the direction that Duke is going in. That's what you have to decide. If you like everything I've shared today and you're not put off by it, if you're comfortable with it, if it inspires you to want to go to Duke, then there's the phone ringing. That probably means Scott is telling me to stop this video, but I'm going to keep going in anyway. Then you absolutely should continue with your application to Duke. Okay? But if you feel as though there have been things in this article that concern you a great deal, maybe Duke is not the right fit for you based off of a values misalignment, right? And so in that particular case, I would argue that think long and hard about if you still want to apply to Duke. Now, again, I personally think college is all about diverse experiences that you have with people you would never have met in your hometown or may never meet again in the world of work. But what Duke is also communicating here is that they want to have as many tools at their disposal to compose the class they already want to compose. They don't want to be hemmed in by objective numerical rankings or numbers. They don't want to be audited. They don't want to be traced in terms of how they're making their decisions when they remove essays and they remove test scores from the objective rankings that they are producing. So how are admissions decisions being made at Duke? They're being made by the brain trust in the Duke admissions office that has a very particular worldview and value system, which they're entitled to. But it might not align with yours, or it might. And so you just have, I think this is a wonderful and elucidating article in the sense that it gives you the knowledge you need to move forward with Duke or maybe without Duke when you finish your college list and ultimately decide which is your first choice, which is your second choice, which is your third choice. It makes the college admissions process that much more of a whitewater rafting adventure in the sense that you never know what's around the bend, especially at Duke, because so much of the process is subjective. No two whitewater rafters are going to have the same experience in the review process. It's going to be very much like going to an art gallery and two people standing next to each other. One might be appalled by the art on the wall. One might love the art on the wall. So my job as a college admissions coach is to get inside the minds of the individuals who are most likely reading applications at any particular school. And when advising a student and a family about how to approach that application, make the best estimated guess based off of knowledge that I have, of course, of how you need to approach framing your application so as to give you yourself the best chance of getting in. But before you even get to that point, you have to decide if you want to apply to Duke now that you've heard this. And many people will not be put off at all by this. Other people will be put off. And I think I respect both camps a great deal. But this is part of the due diligence process. Whether or not you want to apply to a particular school, you should gather as many little bits of data and information as you can, both subjective and objective, both quantitative and qualitative, when determining A, do you want to apply, and B, where Duke, in this case, may fall on your particular college list. I hope you enjoyed this video. My name again is Craig Meister. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel. If you want to work with me one-on-one throughout the entire college admissions process, you can go to my website, which is collegemeister.com. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and most importantly, try to stay stress-free, if you can, throughout the entire college admissions process.